For the current assessment, if you don't get the functions part right, then you get not achieved. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are struggling to convert a program that doesn't have functions to one that does have functions. So I'm just going to kind of step through typical things that I'm seeing and what I think you could be doing to solve that problem. So here's a program. It's a currency conversion program. It gets its rates from online. It's got a little menu system. You can see option 1, convert to a specific currency. Number 2, show all currency rates, etc. And if user choice equals 1, if user choice equals 2. So it's well enough written, but it's not got any functions in it. So it wouldn't pass level 2. So something that I see people do is this. They chunk their program into sections like this, and then they call each section. It's okay in that it does make the program easier to work out what's going on, where it's going on. So if I came in to maintain this program, I could jump into a function that does what I want. But it doesn't give values, so nothing is being passed within these brackets to the function, and there is no return. So it just really changes the flow of the program. So that's still not achieved. A step forward would be to do something perhaps like this, where you've got a menu choice, and you can see the menu choice does the input and it returns a value. So I've got user choice equals get menu choice. It doesn't pass anything to it in the brackets, but it does at least get that return value and put it into here, and then that's used later on. Now you might say, well, what's the advantage in that? Well, it does make it easier to do something like, for instance, this, like the get menu choice. You can put some nice validation in there, which then doesn't get in the way of the flow of the rest of your program. So that's a really valid thing to be doing. And if you did that, I'm not saying you're getting excellence, but it's certainly going to be good evidence towards achieved at least. Next stage along, what's different here? Here, when I call this function, I actually pass it the currency rates. So in the previous one, if I go back to here, currency rates is defined at this level of the program, at sort of that root level of the program, which means that it is available in the functions as well, unless you start modifying it, at which point it decides it's a local variable. So some people then start saying, okay, what I need to drop in here is a global currency rates, and then that's available here as well as in the rest of the program. But that's a pretty bad solution. So what we've gone for is saying, I'm going to pass currency rates to the function, and then here it's currency rates there as well, but that's a local variable. So we're not going to have any issues with it complaining if you start to modify that variable, and modifying this won't change the value back here. So we're now into good territory, that we're actually passing a value and then getting some returns. Still, you know, I wouldn't call this much better than achieved at the moment. We are battling here, of course, because I'm trying to convert what was a non-function program into a function program, which is kind of more difficult than writing it with functions in the first place. So this one, you know, I've been a bit, I've forced it a little bit. So I am passing currency rates to this function here, and then, but instead of doing a print statement in this bit here, which is what I had before, I generate the actual string and then get that string back into a variable and then print that variable, the output variable there. It's a bit forced, it's not great, but at least it shows the principle. You understand the principle of passing values and getting return values which you can then work with. Now, I'm also aware a lot of you are converting things with like name, address, and so on. So you have a function which gets those, but they're working on globals at the moment. And you're not just returning a single value. So the last thing I'm going to look at here is I've chosen, in this case, it's got three things happening here where you make the choice, you do the dollars, and you calculate a result. And then I pass these three things back as a tuple or tuple. I've never known how to pronounce that correctly. And these three things are passed back as kind of it's like an array. It's in round brackets, so it's a tuple rather than an array, but you treat it like an array. So back here, I've got my output, which is actually three values, and I can look at 1, 2, 3, those three separate values, and put them into this. Or you could, of course, put them into your name, address, or whatever values that are then globals at this point. So it's not brilliant, but it's kind of what I'm acknowledging here is the position that some of you are in and trying to work with what you've got. So having functions which don't return values and turning them to functions which do return values. And you've got functions as well which don't receive like parameters, arguments. And then I need you to make them into functions that do receive arguments and work on them locally. Hope that helps.